right, assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to iSlam podcast. It is I, your host Arif Khan, welcoming you all to week one recap. And to help me do this, we have none other than Mr. Maju. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Walaikum salam. You
Right.
got to get some fresh tunes on that box, man. Like you just keep rocking the old tunes.
There we go. Now I can hear him. Nice. And of course, we have the commissioner himself, Ahmed Ibrahim.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, Maju, I kind of like that tune. I kind of like, bopping my head. I like it.
It gets old, man. How many times are we going to keep reusing that? Get some
What's wrong
funky,
with the
some
word
fresh.
old? Old is gold. Come on.
Well, Maju, you want your champion theme back?
No. Too much expectation, man. I'd rather go last round, last pick. I'm good. Just chilling now.
Yeah. Well, I got a few soundtracks for each individual. So. All right, let's see who's in the chat here. Zaid, you're already here. Why are you saying that? That's okay. You said salam, so that's good. All-Star Driving School, Woodbridge, Mr. Rizwan Malik. Assalamu alaikum. We got Hamza.
Assalamu alaikum, Hamza.
All right, cool. All right, well, so today we're going to do basically a recap of the first week that we had last week. Then we will have a little chat with the commissioner, and he's just going to give us some reminders on rules and questions people have. So if you have any questions for the commish, now's the time to put it in so that we can discuss those. And then we'll try to end it off with a quick preview of week 2, which is tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first game last week was this one here. So this was Sabr versus Taqwa, and this ended with a 1-0 win over a depleted Taqwa lineup.
Yes. Well, I mean, that word that you said, a depleted lineup, is actually well said. And to be honest with you, with the depleted team that Taqwa had because of another sport, we won't name that, but they were depleted. I think, no. It's for soft people. But anyhow, it was actually surprising, to be honest with you. I watched that entire game, seeing Taqwa, how short bench they were, and how they kind of held their own against a full stack Sabr team was really impressive to watch. And it's only telling what that team has when they have everybody there, because if they did what they did with the players that were there, and that was pretty much, I wouldn't say their second cast, but they didn't obviously have their GM trio, but man, if they had that GM trio, that game would have been definitely another thing.
Yeah.
Another thing that's important to note about this game is that the goal, it was 1-0, and the one goal that was scored was literally on a 5-on-3. So I mean, this game could have gone either way. I think Taqwa played a very well game. And Sabr never really capitalized on anything.
And it didn't because of this gentleman right here, Yusuf Kapoor. He stood on his head on one of his better games right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really impressed with Yusuf throughout the years. I mean, Yusuf has gone from from a goalie that was once kind of a rookie, I guess, but he's developing, and he's definitely held his stature in terms of one of the fine elite goalies that we have in Iceland.
So won with the goalie of the best goalie last year or the season before, I forget. Yeah,
two seasons.
2 seasons, yeah.
So
he's legit, man. He's legit.
Yeah.
Respect on his name.
When you make 15 saves and only allow one with a team that only has I'm looking at it, 6 players, that in itself is just astonishing. So,
right. So Maju, do you think there's cause for concern on Sabr's part for them not being able to take better advantage of the situation that they had?
No, you know what? Let's not start lighting fires and saying, we need support, we need help. It's too early. They still need to gel. They still need to figure out who's playing what, where does everyone fit in. The fact that they took 16 shots is respectable right there. That they were fine. They were able to break the zone. They were able to get something going. So you have to just take the successes where you're getting. And on the other side, Riaz only saw 8 shots, but he didn't allow any. Like, sure. It's still a progressive season. There's 9 more games still to go before playoffs. Next week I think, or this on Friday they have a big matchup to really gear up for, and we'll talk about that. inshallah. And I think it's take it a step at a time. Don't worry so much right away.
Yeah, and in fact, Yusuf's play has gotten some accolades even from other goalies, including our own Fahad Mohammed. So it's big praise.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we jump to the next game, we see Mr. Hamdani in the chat group. So, Assalamu alaikum, bro. Welcome back.
Assalamu alaikum, Manawar.
It's nice to see you there. We look forward to having you back in the league itself.
Inshallah.
It'd be great. And same goes out to a lot of other players who've been with us in the past. Right? Come
I
back.
think Munawar might want the league to move closer to St. Catharines. It's a far drive for the man.
This man,
I don't mind closer to Ajax either, personally, but throwing that out there.
And that's what I got to say. When he played, and not to digress here too much, but the brother, he came from St. Catherine to play, and he barely missed any games. So all you guys who have ride problems and this and that, you have no excuse.
Yeah.
All right. Game 2 was between Yakin and Iman, and this ended in a 3-2 win for Yakin. Maz Wakar won 2 stars, and Junaid chipped in as a 3rd star as well. So, Maju, I know you weren't there. You were chilling somewhere in the Bahamas, was it? Or Caribbeans?
This time it was different. This time I was traveling for work and trying to fly back on the Friday from Alberta. So that proved to be challenging and tiring. So
you should have logged in from the plane. Like, what's with these excuses? They have Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi for what? Playing a game?
Well, I actually played in this game. So this game was actually a well-balanced game, to be honest with you. I think the running joke in our locker room was, we got to play the full game, especially the last 30 seconds, because that's what it really killed us. It was 2-2 all the way up to the last 30 seconds. There was a timeout that was called again in the last 30 seconds. And, Team Yakin actually capitalized on that. Very impressed with the new guys on the team. I think there was a brother on our team, Muhammad Salah, really like stood his ground. Really, a young youth that really legs. Impressed with his game. A lot of new guys, Abdullah Ingar, Sayed, Iftikhar. They really played well and really set up their expectations in terms of, like, we were missing a lot of guys as well, but just kind of having that versatility in that first game, really impressed with what they showed. But even the other team too, Yakin. I mean, with that top line, when you got Wakar, you got Maz, you got Wakar, and you got Altaf Panchati there as well. That's a really solidified top line, and I think they'll definitely create havoc. And for our team, Iman, to kind of contain that first line, I was impressed definitely by that. We were also missing our GM Adam, but it's all about, and if there's any message out there, it's like really playing that full entire game. The last 30 seconds could do damage to you. So just really make sure that you stay focused, and it's not just 2 50-minute periods. It's really the full 15 minutes, and really be careful of that, because it could just change on you in a flash. And that's literally what happened in this game.
And I got to give credit, because Team White was all over, and they look really good to start the game because there was built-in chemistry. But then you guys, hung in there, came back, and it wasn't until I think the last few minutes that Maz.
Well, I think
really
the
nice
real credit really goes to our goalie, Bilal Sayed. He really hung us in there. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about Kapoor, we talk about all the other goalies, but I think Bilal really is a guy that is hidden under the radar. And I think if there's any credit, or if there's any notice that came out of the last game, is just really impressed with the way he played. Because if it wasn't for him, it could have been a lot worse for sure. Wakar had a lot of one-timers, and Bilal just stood on his ground and kind of held it in for us. So kudos and a shout out to him as well.
Yeah, Yakin also missed a lot of shots on net. They had so many opportunities. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a good team. I mean, they were already gelling pretty well. So, but Iman didn't look too sloppy. And given the fact that you're missing a GM,
Yeah,
you guys look good
and
out
like
there.
I said, it's like to Maj's point. It's only the first game. It'll take time for us to gel. But from anything that came out of the first game, I think there are positive things to come out of this game, and I think it only get better for Iman. And of course, Yakin as well. They already have that established chemistry. Maz and Panchati obviously played each other in the summer league, and they have that established chemistry. But again, when you got Wakar on your team, I mean, that doesn't hurt as well, right?
Well, you know what?
Absolutely.
Just going to your point, like, Iman is one of probably the younger teams in the league too. So even we talked about this last time Iman was playing in the fall season that they still have to find ways to gel and not necessarily bring up their maturity, but to your comment, is play that full 15, right? That last 30 seconds, I think I'm looking at the score sheet,
Yeah, it
was
was 30.
when yeah, and it, like you said, it speaks volumes that you have to make sure you finish off that game strong regardless. And this could have just been a one pointer and a tie. um, Again, all due respect goes to Yakin. Like you said, they have a lot of built-in chemistry, but just little known fact that Bilal Sayed has been actually playing goalie for a while now. He's been playing in some pretty
Mhm.
big tournaments. He played defense last season, but he played one game in net. He's been playing in some of the summer tournaments. And Fahad Mohammed made his return back to Islam as a goalie, not a defenseman this time. So um, you'd say people who haven't been in the pipes for too long, so at least they're making their return to Iceland. So that was both good to see in terms of them.
I just want to address Junaid's comment. Yes, I am, if not probably not one of the oldest, but the oldest player actively in the league right now. But I do bring the average a little bit. But again,
I
the main contingency of that team is youth, and
I will disagree, sir. There is a person who is the same age as you in the league. He's the other elder statesman.
Don't look at me. I'm
I
not
don't
that
know if
old.
that's something to brag about, but yeah.
Oh, who is it? I guess if you know, put it down in the chat. See if you can guess. We'll give you the result at the end of the show. All right. So moving on. The next game was game 3. Rida versus
I'm older.
Ikhlas, and this ended with a pretty lopsided score of 5-1 for Rida, and the stars were Akbar, Ishmael, and then Mohammed Yusuf Chaudhry for Ikhlas. So I know Maji, you weren't there, but
but hold on, but
since I
am
did
I
play in the
repping
game,
the right blue jersey? Is that the right one to be repping?
yes, I like this
Okay.
jersey way
Just making
better.
sure.
Yeah, 100%. See, you as a goalie, you're lucky. You get to wear what you want. I have to wear the. Doesn't matter. This is my team. Before I jump into this game, Habibi, did you watch some of it, and what was your view
I,
from
I
the
was kind of
outside?
in the locker room, kind of going through our post game khutbah, but yeah, I think you'd probably
Sure.
be better addressing this game more than I would.
Yeah. So, I mean, for our game, I felt like, from obviously this might be a little biased from our side, but we felt like we were all over Ikhlas. I think they had most of their players. They might have been missing a couple, although RC was a little banged up. But yeah, I think we gelled really quickly, really fast, and we kept the pressure on the whole game and just kept chipping in for goals. I think our second line of myself, Akbar, and Naeem, we're like +4. So we didn't even need the big guns to really get into it, like Asif and Muhib and Ali Wadi, Ajmal. I think just the second line alone, we did pretty well. So if that's a sign of things to come, that bodes pretty well for us, because as we know, secondary and tertiary scoring always helps build really good teams.
Yeah, and to our point earlier about being the first game. I mean, there's still 9 games left, and it'll take time before everyone kind of gels together and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and I gotta say, these two brothers, Akbar and Ishmael, they're new to the league, pretty new to the league, and people are probably saying they were steals in the draft, because as young guys who were chosen later on, they're centering the first two lines. So that's a great sign of
mashallah.
the new talent we have.
Now, did you see that, or do you recall, or was Ikhlas trying to line match Rida? Because it really seems very much out of norm that Ikhlas having Badger in net,
Hmm.
Mohammed Patel, and just a good strong lineup with Tayyab, RC as good as great GMs. It seems really out of character that five would go in and that Rida would put 25 shots on Badger.
Yeah. To Rizwan's point here, they actually had only 5 forwards and 3D, so they were shorthanded. So I apologize. I was more focused on our game, I guess. They were shorthanded in that sense, but we weren't trying to line match really. Or I don't think they were trying to line match because they just didn't have enough players to line match. But what I did notice was they were really trying to trap quite a bit, which is understandable if you're shorthanded. They basically didn't do much forechecking. They just lined up in the neutral zone and tried to uh, you know, uh, cough out the puck or ball from us. Um, but yeah, I guess if you're shorthanded, it will
Yeah.
take a toll on you after a while. All right, we got here, Tahir. A reward to be offered to get a picture of Arik in the Rida jersey. Well, Tahir, you'll be happy to know that as soon as I wore it and I was waiting to play, there was a paparazzi of people taking pictures of me. So there's enough pictures out there. You can check it out. I'm gonna have to put extra Canadian logos on my helmet and jersey and stick and
Wow.
everything just to compensate. All right. Speaking of red teams here, the last game of the night was Ehsan versus Haya, and this was a 2-1 win for Ehsan. And it looks like all 3 stars were from Team Red: Hamoudi, Hindi, and Hamzabat. I did get to see the whole thing because again I was in the locker. But Habibi, did
I
you catch a
didn't
little bit of
catch
this
too
game?
much of this game, but obviously I do have someone very close to me on that team. And yeah, and basically, to all accounts, it was actually a well balanced game. Again, it was kind of biased. Hassan did feel that they, were a little bit stronger on that end. I know that there was 2 4-minute penalties, I think, and I think Haya had a 4-minute advantage. I think they're on the power play for the last 4 minutes of the game and really couldn't capitalize anything on that. So I think SN and we've talked about SN from the very beginning of the season too. They're a well balanced team. They have a contingency of good D, good forwards. And actually, if anything, they probably have the most stifling defensive core in the league. So it's no surprise that
Mhm.
it would be truth where some teams will have difficulty scoring, and of course with Hamza and Net, I think
Yeah.
without being at the game, I think the scoreboard kind of is self-explanatory in terms of what happened. So yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know much about the game other than I know that both teams had their chances. But again, when you got a team like Assen with that stifling defense and that solid goaltending back, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard for teams to get through. But Luke is known for for that high hustle. He's known for drafting guys that are familiar to dissecting other teams and dissecting the weaknesses of other teams. So it's just one of those games where I guess they couldn't capitalize on or executing their plan accordingly.
Yep. Yep. And Red looked really good too. Based on just the people they drafted, we were all praising Daoud,
Yeah,
Mr. DC himself. A really good team, and it showed. I think that's another team like Rida where it looks and Yakin where it looks like they already have some good built-in chemistry.
yeah.
That's really coming out
Just
well.
just an always reminder: make sure you like and subscribe to the DC fan page because it's out there on the Facebooks and, and YouTube. But anyways, um, I think one little tidbit of information is if I've for Haya over the last few seasons is they always, and I hate to say this a bit, but they always start off slow, right? They're finding their rhythm.
Hmm.
Khalid is, excuse me, their goalie Khalid Mufti is like the Martin Brodeur in his later seasons. That he's a little bit rocky in the beginning of the season, but as the season goes on, the games go on, he just builds and figures out how the team he's playing, how his team's playing, and what he needs to do, and he just keeps getting
Yeah.
better with age. Same thing with Luke and the team that they usually have a little bit of a tough time starting up, but once they get their feet wet and they start running and they start figuring out their strengths and figuring out their weakness so they can plug those, is they just keep getting better and better, and that is no better result was like the last 2 seasons ago, where again they were on the brink of getting barely any wins and on the brink of making the playoffs, and then just got better, and then they were able to make a decent playoff run. So
Hmm.
you think you can count
Yeah.
out Haya? Not a chance. They're always in it, always through the thick of it, and yeah, I'm surprised that they couldn't capitalize on that 4 minutes in the for the literal almost the full 4 last minutes of the game. But again, like you said, Dawood knows what he's doing, and who he's drafting, and people will just put their bodies on the line to make sure that the goalie can see it, and also just that it stays out of the net. That's how you get the W.
Haya is always known. Any Luke Akip team, they're known to be more playoff ready teams. So you're right. They seem to struggle and try to find their way in the regular season the last few years, but always in the playoffs, if they make it, they're
Well,
always
it doesn't
threats.
hurt when you have half a family on that team too. So they definitely have the established chemistry. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and the rest of the
It's
family's
good. It's
outside cheering
great.
for them,
I
so
love
it's
it.
all good. All right, so let's cap this first week off with our player of the week, and it is none other than Akbar Omar for Team Rida with 3 assists. He had a fantastic game. He was all over the place, running hard and getting into the corners, getting the ball. So yeah, congratulations, Omar. I'm sorry, Akbar. And this one is this season. Our sponsor is Hopo. So I hope,
Hupo.
or Hupo. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. So maybe Habibi, you can give a quick
Well, I
synopsis
mean,
of what
it's
they
it's
do
a
and
very good initiative, and,
how.
and I'd like to thank the brothers that are running this. It's a really good initiative in terms of like they provide a platform to kind of empower impoverished communities through the power of work. So what they do is instead of giving handouts, they kind of create jobs, and they have a model that kind of works. So it's kind of that thing where you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, you kind of feed him for a lifetime. So it's a great initiative. I think the brothers behind this are doing great work, mashallah. So we're very proud to honor them in terms of like for sponsoring the Player of the Week for this for this season. But just going back to the brother that won it, Akbar Ahmad, it's really good to see one of the new guys, kind of winning it, and not the usual suspects that we usually see. So I think from that perspective, at least from my perspective, just seeing a new guy kind of winning it, it kind of gives the spotlight on those players and kind of away from the usual guys. So great to see Akbar win it for the first year. Sorry, for the first game of the season, and hopefully we'll see a lot of newer guys winning it, inshallah.
So I actually looked up Hopo a little bit just before the podcast as well, and I totally agree. Doing amazing work. They're partnering with not just, again, like they're just not giving money and saying, hey, buy what you need, we'll do whatever. It's empowering them so they can self-sustain their own communities for the long term. Like you said, teaching them how to fish, how to be able to be self-reliant. Now, on top of that, they clearly know what their limitation is. They know that they can't just walk into a community and say, "Oh, fix this, and do this, and you'll be great." They're actually working with the community leaders and people in that are living in that area, and professors and colleges and other people that are in that community
Yeah,
to be able to understand the challenges, the limitations of that region, of that city, of that town, and working with that. So they're just not saying, "Hey, do what we tell you, and just then you'll be successful." They're actually, working with the leadership, the individuals, and figuring out what will work for them. So that in itself is just amazing work, where they're dedicating so much time and resource to make sure that these communities are successful for the long term.
yeah,
It's amazing.
mashallah.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's move on to the second part of our show today, which is why we have Habibi here. So Habibi, you were brought in to just give a couple of reminders on some of the rules we have. I guess a little bit more unique to ball hockey than some of the other leagues. And also in the chat, if anybody has any questions for the commish, now's the time to pose them because he is here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
so I,
Habibi.
I I think
Stage.
the one thing that we definitely need to acknowledge is that we are governed by the OBHA and the OBHF. So anything that's tournament related, we do have that invitation and that right to enter those tournaments. So we're kind of governed by that governing authority, which is the reason why we have regulated OBHA refs. So there's no ambiguity in terms of where the standard umbrella of the rules come from. But obviously, what differentiates us from OBHA regular leagues is that we are a draft system. We are a brotherhood league. And that's kind of unique because you and I and Maju and obviously everyone that's been in the league, like we've played for several seasons, and the one thing that's unique to us is that we play with different brothers every single season. So the 10 games that I'll experience with this group of guys, I'll experience it with another group of guys, and so on and so forth. So that censorship of brotherhood is kind of unique from that perspective. But of course, with that perspective comes the challenges, because then we have to implement kind of rules that are kind of unique to a draft system. So I know that there's been there's obviously with the challenges that we have in terms of like the winter leagues and the summer leagues, there's obviously some sort of disparity, because with the summer season we only have kind of six teams, 13 games per roster, 13 players per roster. But with the winter it's a little bit larger. We have kind of 8 teams and 16 teams per roster. So obviously there are some challenges in the summer, where we have the summer itself being people have summer vacations, but also with the smaller rosters, that creates a challenge as well. But also on top of that, it's the fact that I wouldn't say the talent is kind of lower, but just with the sheer factor of numbers, when you have kind of like players in the 80s as opposed to like 120 players, there's that disparity in terms of like the pool of talent that comes out. So we do have our standard governing rules. Obviously, we are an no swear league, so the refs are very well aware of that, and it kind of differentiates us from other leagues as well. But obviously, with the draft system, there are draft rules. So when we do have injured players, all GMs, are entitled to bring a player. And usually, what that player that comes in, it's very crucial and very important to know that all players really are drafted, are really taken from where they are drafted. So in other words, the game really starts from the GMs in terms of like where they draft players. And I know, Arif, we talked about this on a podcast before in terms of like family and friends. So it's good to have a family member being drafted first or second, but you got to remember, if you're drafting that family member first, then or drafting that family member third, it's not the caliber of that player itself, it's where the round that he's drafted it, because the waiver system itself is really governed by the round that player was drafted in. So I think that's one
Yeah.
thing that players in the league should understand, that it's not something that the OC have any vested interest to make any team better, other than obviously maybe helping, the last place team in terms of getting access to a player and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I think one thing that players should be cognizant is that we try to do what's best for the league. And obviously with GMs, we have many GMs that that kind of come and go, but we try to keep it as consistent as possible.
Yeah, yeah. No, that well said. Well said. One thing I'll just add to that is also just an advice to GMs as a former GM and stuff like that. Being a GM doesn't just come with authority over players and stuff. It's actually a position of servitude, if you will, right? You're there to service your other players. You're there to make sure that you make the best decisions, not for yourself, but for your team and other players. And it's your responsibility to make sure that the people under your charge are having the best possible
Correct.
experience within your team, right? So and again, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but just a reminder that as a GM, as a captain, you got to make sure that you're not going on a power trip, right? Like you're there to help and make the best experience for your own people. And I think for the most part, all the GMs do that. But again, I
Yeah,
think
and
it's a
and
good
and
reminder.
before the draft, the GMs we're put in a room for about half an hour, just going through the rules line by line by line, in terms of like making sure that they understand the rules, and they kind of bestow the rules, and kind of it's a partnership really between the OC and the GMs to make sure that the rules are enforced. And if there's any ambiguity, any questions, by all means, you have your GMs and even the OC members. We're open. If you have any suggestions or concerns, by all means, bring it up to us, and we're more than happy to do it, because again, it's your league. We're just here to kind of administer and make sure that it's a good experience for all of us.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to the last phase of our show today, and this is going to be just a quick recap, or not recap, sorry, a preview of week 2. So this week, as in tomorrow, the first game will be Iman versus Ehsan. So
I am
Habibi, I think you're
definitely in this
probably in
game,
this
and I
game.
think
Yeah.
not to Yeah, I mean, I think we are going to have a full roster for all intents and purposes. I think we have most of our guys showing up, but again, we're going up against a team that we all have spoken about earlier in the podcast. This is a well drafted team. They have probably one of the most stifling defense in the league, and probably one of the better goalies too. So I think for us, it's really capitalizing on what we're good at, and that's using our speed and just to make sure that we penetrate and just to kind of get in there as much as we can to capitalize on their weakness, which is probably not the speed. That's something that we got over them. But they also got the talent there. Nothing to take it away from them. They got Dawood and Farouk and Hamoudi and Kesatini. They got all those guys back there, but every team has a weakness. It's really up to my GMs
Yep.
to kind of exploit and find out what that weakness is. And in my opinion, it's probably capitalizing on our youth and our speed.
Mhm. Yep. I'll give Maju game 2 here, which is Yakin versus Haya at 9 o'clock. I know you haven't seen the teams play, but I mean, Yakin looks really good, and Haya is a Haya team. Maju,
I,
what
I
do you
think this
think
is
this
going
one's
to
going to go?
be, unfortunately, I think it might be one sided. I think Yakin's strength is offense, Haya's strength is defense. So I think, we're going to see it go one way, but it may not be the way you think of. I actually think at one point, Haya is going to be able to stand tall because defense wins championships and turn it back on them, right? Maybe contrary to popular belief that people are saying Yakin is very again strong, whatnot. I'm just willing to put it out there and say that it's just going to take one little chance, one little flick of the wrist that might. And no, nothing against Fahad, right? Fahad, you're a great goalie too, but I got to say that you might be bored for quite a bit, but you might be surprised by one of the chances. So I have a feeling that Haya might be able to just turn that tide for a quick second, and that might be all it takes. You
You just give them a backhanded compliment. You might be bored. What are you saying, that Haya is
I don't
thoughts
think
on
I
Fahad?
think Haya's going to be trapped in
Wow.
their own zone for quite a bit of the game, right? I think it's going to be an offensive onslaught by Yakin, but Haya's going to find a way to branch it out and be able to turn it around on them.
Habibi, a question for you from DC
No,
himself,
he won't.
David Kiamber. Winner of the game gets
He
locker room
he
mate.
knows
Do
the
we
rules.
That's the one benefit of drafting a B on your team, is you always know you're going to get locker
You
room
don't have to
mate.
put it in the group chat. It's just kind of like you know where you're going.
Automatic privileges of the commish. All right, game 3. Who do we have? We have Rida versus Subber. This is going to be interesting. I mean, Subber had a hard time with Takwa despite a depleted team, and Rida is coming off a pretty high flying game. I think everyone is in high spirits. Maju, your first game of the season, inshallah. What are
What
you
are my
anticipating
thoughts?
here?
Stop Omar Hussein.
Yeah, 'cause we had Ali Kawaja who backstopped us pretty well. We only let in 1 goal. And the question is, would you have gotten the
Hey,
shutout?
Ali's Ali, man. He's just a phenomenal goalie. I don't think I could have done better than him by any means. Right. My mental game plan right now is to stop Omar Hussein. He has a rocket of a shot. He can really lay it down. And as much as he's a big body that's going to try to walk through people, he still has the finesse
Yeah.
to him. And Omar Asawi just has a shot that curves 2 feet every single time. So again, I just got to be squared up, got to play my game, and hopefully, inshallah, we can get the W. But I do have faith in our team that again, we're just riding that high. We're going to keep it rolling. And Riaz against Yakin, not this season, of course. I'm talking about Riaz against Yakin in the winter season, where Yakin had Hamza Jogiat,
Mhm.
Yusuf Memin, and Abrar Desai. Riaz actually kept them off the board. I think they only allowed 2 goals for 80% of the game, and then the floodgates opened. The only reason was Riaz was tired beyond compare. So Riaz might again find a way to stand on his head, and that could leave Rida bewildered.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for Rida, it's also going to be an important test to see that success that they had in game 1. Was it a week 1? Was it a fluke, or is it legit and they're only going to get better? So, again, first couple of games of the season, everyone is just trying to figure things out. So we'll see how this one goes for us. And the last game of the night will be Eclas versus Takwa. So I think Takwa's hopefully going to have their whole team. And again, Eclas is coming off a 5-1 shellacking. Hopefully they will also have a full team. It'd be good to see if both teams are complete, how they look.
Yeah, I
Habibi,
think
any thoughts
Takwa
on?
is looking really good right now. Just by what we saw in the first game, but even by all accounts, I think
Mhm.
and again, no disrespect towards the class either, they're actually a well drafted, well organized team. But given from what I've saw from the first game, given the prime suspects of Takwa, they weren't there at the first game, and I think that they will definitely create havoc for an Eclas team. And again, we really got to see how RC is doing too. Hopefully he's recovered. Hopefully his injury is not as severe as we think it is. I know it's a lingering injury that he's had for a
Mhm.
while, but man, that trio on Takwa, I'm definitely that's definitely one to watch for. And if they're there tomorrow night, then I think that's definitely
Yeah.
something that we should definitely be impressed to watch. Actually, for sure.
Challenge. All right. So that kind of starts bringing us to the end of our show, guys. Thank you very much for joining. I'll give Majid
Yeah,
the
because the elder
last
statesman,
word.
no one got this answer. The other elder statesman is Imran
Yeah.
Shah.
I'm actually older than him, by the way, but we'll get there.
Well, you're the same age currently.
Maybe
He's
Naveed
not
Mohammed.
playing.
No, but he's part of the league. All right, boys. Thank you so much. Inshallah, we'll
Inshallah,
see you guys
inshallah.
tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.